Hey everybody, my name is Tim Hepworth here with Fly Fishing Bow River Outfitters and Thursday Night Live Fly Tying, and I'm here to bring you another quick tie. And this quick tie is sponsored by Western Canada Fly Fishing Guide School. You can see the website below. If you have any interest, check that out, go over the website and take a look at it. Today we are going to be tying the half and half. So this is a nice little combination of a couple flies that are coming together. Great deceiver pattern, and we're going to tie it. It's going to look just like this hopefully when we're done. I'm tying out of Season 6 kit. And this episode is episode 8, I believe. Hope I got that right. But if you're tying out of your Season 6 kit, it should look like this. When you pull it out, you're going to grab the appropriate package. It's got the number 8 on it. And you'll see you have two patterns in there. Just make sure you pull out the one that's got not the foam. The other one's a foam pattern, so this one you'll be quite apparent. So don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. Hit that little bell icon, and every week you'll see 2 of these videos pop up with 2 different flies from that week's episode. If you aren't tying out of our Season 6 kit and you have the individual kit, nothing changes. All the materials are there for you. And if you don't have that, don't worry. Head on over to our website. You'll find a full material list for these flies, and you can just tie along with us with your own materials. So why don't we head on over to the vise and let's get rocking on this fly. So go ahead, in your kit you're going to see you have a good amount of hooks and some dumbbell eyes. Let's get those separated out. Go ahead and get your hook placed in your vise. Like so. I'm going to be tying with some UTC 140 in white for this pattern. I'm going to go ahead and start that thread just behind the eye. I'm going to work it back just a little ways, and I'll trim out that tag end. And the first thing we're going to do on this fly is we're going to tie in our dumbbell eyes. So again, on this pattern, similar to how we did it on the Creelix and similar to how we did it on the Clouser, we're going to tie these in actually right up on top of the hook shank. Now I do want to leave myself some room because I have to bring some materials out in front of that eye, so there's no point in crowding it. We have a long hook shank to work with. So we're going to come in, get a wrap kind of over the edge of those eyes, a couple of them just to kind of get it started, and then we can switch directions, get that propped right up on top of the hook shank. And then we're just going to start a whole bunch of figure eights. We're going to do figure eights, we're going to do some cross patterns, making sure that hopefully it's staying perfectly perpendicular to that hook, like so. And we're going to know that it's good and secure when we can't really move it around very easily anymore. It's always going to move a little bit, but we just don't want it to have kind of free range to move around. So once we feel like we got those locked in, they're not moving too much on us, we're kind of happy where that is right now. So first thing I want to do is I just want to lay a nice little thread base, not super tight, just enough for some of this slippery bucktail to grab onto. And I'm going to leave my thread right up here behind the dumbbell eyes. So in your kit, you're going to see 2 different colors of this bucktail. You got some olive and you have some white. We're going to use the white first off here. So I'm going to go grab myself a little clump. We don't need a ton of the white. We're going to use it twice. We don't need a lot of it at once. So I'm just going to get a decent little amount. Make sure those tips are fairly aligned, but they don't have to be perfect. We're not going to stack it. I'm going to get the little fluff out that's in the bottom. Just want to make sure that's pulled out of there. So for the length of this, the feathers that we're going to put in here, our saddle hackle, is going to hang out the back of this fly quite a ways, but we don't want this hair to hang out anywhere near as far as that. This is kind of just engulfing and kind of holding up and propping those feathers up. So I'm going to roughly gauge about 1 full length off the back is going to be roughly where I'm going to put it. So I can gauge it off the hook eye. Once I'm happy with where I think it's going to be, I'm going to go right about there. I'll switch hands, and this is going to show me exactly where I need to cut this. So I'm going to come in and just straight cut right there. Make sure I get all of them, all the pieces, and I'm just going to lay that down right behind the dumbbell eyes and get some good securing thread wraps right there so it's not going anywhere. And then I'm just going to lift it up like this, and I'm going to do an open spiral motion, not touching wraps by any means, just open spiral back to the edge of the point of the hook bend. So if my thread was hanging, it'd be right around that barb, and I can let go of it. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of open spiral that back again, just to kind of get that cross going. And then one more time, I'm going to take it back down. Okay. And I'm going to leave my thread right there. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to come in here with our saddle hackle. So I'm going to grab 2 of them off the stack you have in there. So these olive or green saddle hackles. When I tie these in, in a perfect world, I'd like them to be sitting exactly at the same angle because they always have a little bit of a bend to them. But what we want to do is we want to place the underside of the feather is going to be pointed out towards you when you're tying it in. So they actually should splay out a little bit when they're dry, and then it just gives it a little bit more motion when we're actually fishing this fly. So for length of this, we do want it to stick out past that deer hair or that bucktail. Not a crazy long distance, but we're going to be roughly 2 times the length of that overall hook shank hanging out the back. So just as you can see there, it's kind of a little bit beyond that bucktail we tied in. Once you pick your spots, not exact science, just roughly pick it. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to peel all those extra barbs down off the stem so it's out of my way. I'll just clip that off, but you want to leave some stem to work with to tie that in. So once I got that kind of cleared off like that, I'm going to make sure the underside again is pointed out like so, and I'm going to bring that in and place it right against where I left my thread, right at that bucktail. And we do want these to be right on the side of the hook shank. So important that when we tie this in, if we have to kind of rearrange it, then we do. And if it doesn't sit quite right, it's easy enough to just readjust it. We just want those to splay out the best that we can. But as soon as you put some thread wraps on it, it's going to want to kind of pinch it tight to that hook, so you just got to do the best you can. Helps if you go a little bit lighter with your wraps at first, and then try to rearrange that feather. As long as it's in there, it's playing with that bucktail, we're gonna be happy with it. Okay, so got this one here. Now I gotta do exactly the same thing. I'm gonna leave that stem out the front because I'm gonna secure that kind of all the way up the fly at the end. Now I wanna come measure off this other one, find that same tying point with the next one. Peel that stem so it's open for us again. And then I'm going to come place this on this side of the fly, so the near side of the fly to myself. We're going to tie it in the same way. So you got it placed where you want it. Take that securing wrap, start a little lighter at first, and then you can gain a little bit of extra tension. Now I'm just going to match up those tips, make sure that they're similar in length, which it appears that they are, so that's good. And then I'm just going to secure that stem down almost all the way up to those eyes. Just because I don't want those to go anywhere on me. Just like that. Okay, now we're at this point. All I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this over. Okay, so it's now upside down. And the next thing we're going to do is grab a piece of flash. So you got some nice long pieces of flash in your kit. All I want you to do is align the 2 ends, because we're just going to cut this as perfectly in half as we can. So I'm going to line up those tips like so, and then put my scissors down into the bottom and cut it. And we're going to tie in this crystal flash. So where I'm going to tie this in is right where I've left my thread. So I'm just going to fold that around at the midpoint of that flash, so those tips are fairly even. We might have to trim them a bit anyways. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some thread wraps back now. Okay, now I want to try to keep this right up on top of the hook shank as I move back. And just before I get to those, to the the point of the hook, I'm going to split these off. So I'm going to put 2 on one side and 2 on the other side of the hook. And then I'm just going to continue to wrap back under that hook the best I can. So now those are going to sit right back on either side, just like that. Okay. Now, if they are a little bit long, we can trim them at the end. If they're out beyond that feather, then we're going to want to trim them. So now I'm going to bring my thread all the way back up in front of those dumbbell eyes. Right to here. And then I'm going to turn my fly back upside down. So now we're back working with the top side of the fly. And I'm going to go back to that white bucktail one more time. So we're going to put a little bit more white in. This clump can be a little bigger than the last one that you put in. I'm going to grab some. Again, roughly trying to keep those tips together the best that we can. Now this guy is going to get attached all the way up here at the front of the hook, and it's going to lay back. So it's roughly the same distance off the back as the other bucktail. So roughly halfway down that feather is kind of where we're going to leave it. Okay, so now I'm going to switch hands over like so, and then I'm just going to do a little trim at an angle at the front here, making sure you leave lots so that you have enough to grab on top of. I'm going to take a nice thread wrap up and over, kind of a loose one, and then start tightening a little bit just to make sure that binds down nice. And I'm going to take that all the way out to the hook point. I'm going to make a nice little ramp there. Then I'm going to bring this right against the dumbbell eyes, hop behind them, and I'm going to put thread wraps right behind the dumbbell eyes, just like that. So now we started to build the actual body of the fly. So we're kind of covering up all that hook shank and everything that we've done there. So that kind of splays out nice for us. Now we're getting pretty close to where we're going to be finishing off with the last bucktail, but the last thing we're going to do before we do that, flip it back upside down. I'm going to go ahead and grab a little bit of this red dubbing, so we gave you a whole schwack of it. Just going to take a little bit, we're going to make a little short dubbing noodle, okay? So I'm just going to grab a little piece in my fingers, and I'm going to spin it onto the thread, remembering to move my fingers in the same direction. I don't want to move them back and forth like this, just the same direction. Like that. Add a little bit more. We're just making enough of a red spot back here to kind of imitate some gills on this baitfish pattern. And then I'm just going to wrap this right here. Going to make like a little bump out of it. Want it fairly wound fairly tight, okay? And then I can switch this back like so. Find any of those hairs that might be sticking out at the front. And the last thing we're going to do is attach some deer hair, or some bucktail again, sorry, but it's going to be on the opposite side of the white this time. So the last thing we're going to do is flip it one more time, so we're working on the underside of the fly. And we're going to go ahead and grab some more of that bucktail we have in our kit, which is this time an olive color. And we want it to be roughly the same amount as we did right there in the white. So try to grab a similar amount. Keep those tips as aligned as you can. We're going to bring it back like so. And then we want to, the best we can, we're going to match that length that we tied in that white at. So if you got any real long ones, you can kind of get rid of them. Okay. Like the length. I'm going to switch hands again so I can see how much is hanging out over the front. And I'm just going to make that same little angled trim. And I'm just kind of take my fingers and pinch it down towards the eye like this so that it's at that angle for my tie-in. And I'm going to come right up over top. A couple of looser ones. Get a little tighter. Not trying to flare this hair at all, just trying to cover it up. And then I'm just going to lay a whole bunch of wraps down here, all the way down to the eye, making that nice ramp. We're just going to cover up everything we have put in here at the head. Thread kind of gets a little flattened out. Just spin it and tighten it up again. We're just going to go back and forth till we got every bit that we can see covered up. Bring it down to the eye, like so. Then we want to take this hair and we want to make sure that we split it evenly on each side of that hook. And you kind of got to stroke it back to make sure it comes underneath. Like so. And then all I'm going to do here, guys, I'm going to whip finish this fly. So I'm going to come up, whip finish just behind the hook eye, 3 or 4 turn whip finish. I'm only going to do one because I am going to add some resin onto this as well. Trim that out. And then I'm going to go over to my UV Bone Dry by Solarez. And I'm just going to paint it all over those threads that I put in here at the top. Just really would hate for after that first kind of toothy critter you catch to unfortunately start to unwind those wraps and then your fly's kind of pooched on you. There we go. Once we know that's good and cured, I'm just going to come in here. I can see a little hair that's sticking out here. I'll trim that out best that I can. And that's going to be about it for this half and half deceiver. So oriented in the water, it's going to fish like this. Okay, that's going to be your dark back, your light underbelly, your nice flash. Check your flash just before you're done here. Make sure it doesn't go out behind, which it doesn't. It doesn't quite make it to the end, so I'm happy with that. And that's it, guys. That is your half and half deceiver. Fish this fly. It's not just a saltwater pattern, kind of known for that, but there's definitely some applications even in fresh water and for trout and other species, probably some bass as well. Okay, guys, this is Tim Hepworth here with Fly Fishing Bover Outfitters and Thursday Night Live Fly Tying. I want to thank you for joining us for another quick tie. This one's coming from Season 6, Episode 8 already. Okay, until next week, guys, we'll see you a couple more flies.